Hi, everybody. Jez, it was a perfect lead-in, actually. You said great brands start from within, and culture eats strategy for breakfast. We've been a little delinquent in strategy at Chobani because we're a young company. But what I want to try to talk about today is that, the within part of Chobani, because I think what's within makes its way out and makes you special and different. And I'll spend a lot of time kind of unpacking that in terms of what it means to Chobani and our growth. So today, I'm going to talk about our journey really quickly, talk about our products, our brand, and our culture. And I think when you understand that, you'll understand what we're trying to achieve, and it'll give you a little context when you evaluate our growth and our future plans. So where we want to go is we've been the leader in Greek yogurt for probably about 5 or 6 years now. And it's a great place to be, and Greek yogurt's growing, and it's very, very popular, and it's very versatile, and it's still tremendously underpenetrated. But our ambitions didn't start there, certainly won't end there. So we want to go from a leader in Greek yogurt to a modern CPG company with spirit and soul. And it's a little early in the presentation to start taking jabs, but I can't help myself. And obviously, modern and CPG are incongruous, and CPG and spirit and soul are totally antithetical. And I don't know how many CPGs made that 100 list, but I don't want to know. But look, there's probably 4 or 5 big food conglomerates around the world that probably make 80 to 85% of our food. And there's been a lot of innovation, and there's been a lot of categories that have been disrupted and dismantled. But food is kind of a legacy area, and it's the basis of life. It's what we eat every day, and it could and should be a lot better. It should be better made. It should be better branded. It should be better packaged. It should be better to our planet. And it's one of these lingering, lagging, ironically lagging categories that needs a lot of disruption and a lot of competition and a lot of challenge. So our journey, it goes back. We're lucky enough to have a founder, and he's a funny guy, and he's kind of a gift that keeps on giving because he does a lot of amazing things, crazy things, and if you can bottle that, it's not only great in social and PR, but it's great for the brand. And 10 years ago, he saw an old factory in upstate New York. He was living up there. He had no money. He's a Turkish immigrant, didn't speak the language. And he saw an ad for that plant. It's an old Kraft plant. They closed it down, and it shuttered the community up there. And he said, I'm going to buy that. I think it made Philadelphia cream cheese. It may have made some yogurt way back when, but didn't make Greek yogurt. And, his advisors at the time, I always laugh. I'm like, I wonder who was advising him 10 years ago. He had no money, didn't speak the language. But he said, everyone told me not to do it. Greek yogurt's 0.8% of the market. Now, by the way, it's 55% of the market. So he saw something others didn't. That's a great entrepreneur. And it's way too tart for the American palate. It's way overpriced. The factory obviously needs a lot of work. The thing wasn't even working. It was totally dilapidated. And they said, don't do it. And so he said, like what every good entrepreneur would do, he said this, and then he basically said, watch me. So he went and put $275 million. Well, first of all, he bought the plant for, I think, $650,000. So he went to Albany and got a small business loan, crafty guy, and bought it. Took 2 years to perfect the recipe. And ended up putting $275 million into that plant. And per square foot, it's one of the most capable and most efficient plants in the US right now. And so he made Chobani, and he made a very interesting decision early on. He didn't want yogurt to be exclusive. So the reason why Greek yogurt was 0.8% of the market, people making it at the time were charging $3.89 a cup, and he was from Turkey. And he's like, that's the last thing in the world that should be exclusive is a freaking cup of yogurt. You could live in the mountains, you could live in Istanbul, you always had access to a natural cup of yogurt that was inexpensive. It was just a part of the culture. It's a beautiful food. It's been made for thousands of years. So he said, I'm going to make it mass, and I'm going to be in Walmart, and I'm going to be at Kroger, And everyone was like, what are you talking about? He's like, I don't want to be at just Gourmet Garage, or I just don't want to be on the coasts. And that was a strategic decision early on. So anyway, 2 years to perfect it. Milk from cows not treated with RBST, non-GMO, all natural. All of this, 10% of profits from the very first cup. All of this from the very beginning he did, when no one was looking and no one knew him. And so in the world of renovation and in the world of reformulation, you'll never see us reformulate our food because we made it right to begin with. And I admire companies that reformulate because it's better than not reformulating, but I can't help but get pissed off because I feel like I was being fleeced for so long before they reformulated it. I mean, I ate Lucky Charms with 40 more artificial colors. I'm glad 40 are out now. But I ate them, which is probably one of my many issues I have now as an adult. So better to do it than not to do it, but better to do it right. And the guy had the insight and the foresight. And he didn't really know what he was doing. He just was guided by a desire to do the right thing from the very beginning. So his belief, you talk about insights, his belief was people have great taste, they just need great options. So the people who said don't build Greek yogurt because Americans don't like it, they couldn't afford it. They didn't know what it was. So he felt if I made a great quality product, and this transcends yogurt. If you make a great quality product, people will eventually gravitate toward it. They do have better palates than you think, and they like good options if they're accessible. And so it's not the consumer's fault that a category is not big or thriving. It's probably the brand's fault or the business's fault or the category's fault by not making it delicious, nutritious, natural, and accessible. So from the very beginning, he often talked about the future of food is DNNA. And yeah, it's kind of a cheesy play on words, so forgive me, but there's a lot of delicious foods out there that are not nutritious. And there's a lot of nutritious stuff out there that are not natural. And there's a ton of natural food out there that's not affordable and accessible. And if you can fire on all those cylinders and develop food, and no matter what category you're in, it's delicious, nutritious, natural, and affordable/accessible, you will do well, and that is the future of food. I mean, good food is a right. It's not a privilege. And that's why you see the Targets of the world and the Walmarts of the world and the Krogers of the world. I was there. They're based here. I saw them last night, expanding their natural food selection. No disrespect to Whole Foods. You've seen their numbers. It's not well-made food is not a privilege. It's not. You need to democratize it, and you need to make it more available. And you got to look at your supply chain. You got to look at your pricing. You got to look at your distribution strategy. But that's where this whole world's going. And so he was on that pretty early on. So now we have 3 plants, 5 offices. We have two cafes and 2 continents in a pretty short period of time. We grew faster than Google and Facebook. We went 0 to $1 billion in record time. He won Entrepreneur of the US. He won Entrepreneur of the World by being a yogurt maker, which is pretty remarkable. And it was about growth. It was about growth, to Jev's point. And it doesn't really matter that his growth came from making yogurt. It matters his mindset and how we went about doing that, because I think it applies to a lot of other businesses. And so that on the top is that old dilapidated plant $275 million later. The one in the middle, he went and built the largest yogurt plant in the world. Again, you got to love entrepreneurs. Way ahead of revenue, which we know we can't do. And he probably, and it's 1 million square foot. We probably could have gotten away with 300,000 square feet, but he said, screw it, I'm going 1 million. And he built it in 364 days on double overtime because he wanted to beat the competition. And this is just, it wasn't without its challenges. Like when I came on, when this was finally coming of age, it kind of hurt our balance sheet. It kind of stretched the organization's abilities, frankly. It was in Idaho. It's not a dairy culture. So I remember going there, and machines were broken. They were imported from France, and very expensive. And you had people in there like, I was joking, like cowboys, and they're like got hammers out there. It's like, no, don't hit it with a hammer. And so you got to work through all that, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. I mean, it propelled us, but at the same time, it held us back for a couple of years because we weren't ready. You push the organization beyond its ability. And then we bought a manufacturing plant in Australia. We have a couple of cafes, one in Soho. Just 2 weeks ago, we just opened one up in Tribeca. I'll talk about that. And we have a plan to open about 6 or 7 more in the next few months. You know, in double-digit growth year over year, the category now is starting to kind of plateau. So it's probably growing at a few % a year. So we're growing at about 5 to 6x the category, which is good. But our role now is to try to drive more people into the category now that it's starting to plateau. Because you can't, you know, a category can't grow at 100% a year every year. It's just not going to happen. So you have to get pretty crafty on how to continue to bring more people in, which is kind of where we're at, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. 37% market share, 2,000 employees. And so let me just talk about our products for a second. So I touched on this. So, you know, he talks about being makers, right? He wants to make manufacturing cool again. Manufacturing is the backbone of the country. And he'll do a lot of speeches about that, and it can get quite political at times. But, you know, people who make things and companies who make things have a tremendous effect on the national economy and the local economy and communities. And so makers is a beautiful thing, to make things that people eat that and preferably that are good for people to eat. And it's better food for more people, which is that vision from day one. And there's a lot of better food out there that's really expensive, and there's a lot of more people food out there that's quite crappy and loaded with chemicals and artificial this and that. But better food for more people, very tricky, because our cost of goods are very expensive, our margins are suppressed compared to our competitors. If your margins aren't huge, it's hard to reinvest back in the business in terms of marketing and innovation and driving sales. So it's a very tricky, you know, your sourcing has to be great, your ingredients have to be great, but they can't be overly pricey. And your distribution and logistics have to be very, very efficient, because you don't want to shortcut the food, but yet you want to continue to propel growth. And it's a high wire act. And that equation is a great one, but it's hard to achieve, and it's not without its challenges. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but you know, here's our current portfolio. So our core cup, and you'll notice, by the way, that the strength of the Chobani brand. So we think the Chobani brand brings a lot, and I'll talk about it later. Our competitors, kind of their house of brands. We went with kind of more of a branded house because our name brings a lot of equity. So it's, you know, it's Chobani Core, and it's Chobani Flip, and it's Chobani Kids, and that's bringing a certain Chobani-ness that we think has a lot of value as we enter new categories. Our competitors, if you look at, you know, like a Dannon or something, they'll call it Oikos, so they'll call it Light and Fit, and they're coming up with sub-brands. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong to try to enter new categories, because maybe their brand can't stretch or have as much authenticity or credibility to do it. And then drinks and Chobani Meze dips, which is kind of our first foray into savory. And that's our current lineup. And if you look at, I mean, this is an interesting slide, because total yogurt, we're at 20, but Greek is 55% of the category in dollar share. It's about 50% in EQ volume, because it's more expensive. So it is a divided nation still. It went from 0.8 to 55, which is amazing since Chobani was born. But it's a divided nation, much like politics, much like Britex. So it's 50-50. And I don't want to get into the political. I made the mistake of watching the Today Show this morning before I came here. That is vile stuff. Not only the commercial's bad, but just all the news stories are just awful today, these days. But you have half the country still preferring regular yogurt, because it's 50 to 60 cents. It has a general health halo. It's a little less tart. It's not as well crafted. Doesn't have the protein. In most cases, it's not natural. They tend to be older. They tend to be in the middle part of the country. These are generalizations, but it's changing, but changing slowly. And then you have the other half preferring Greek yogurt. And you want to try to bring those people over from regular to Greek, which is also good for the Krogers and the Walmarts of the world, because it's a higher basket ring. But it's divided. And if you look at, you know, Faye, which is a great brand. It was interesting. I had a yogurt parfait at the 21C, which I love that hotel down the road, and Faye was on the menu. It really pissed me off, so I was trying to talk to the waiter, trying to explain. I'm like, Faye? Are you kidding me? It's like you're a cool, hip, millennial hotel, and you have Faye? Stiff. And I said, their brand platform is the #1 yogurt in Greece. I don't even know what that means in America. Who cares? So totally lost on the guy. He's like, yeah, whatever. But if you look at private label, brands matter. So interesting, I was with Kroger last night. I was with Walmart last week. They all came, look, they're going to see that growth category. They're all going to try to create it and copy it. Private label's been a disaster in Greek because brands matter. Brands bring trust. Brands bring accessibility, aspiration, can command a premium, transcend time. And so you'll see it. It never took off. And that is despite the largest grocery stores in the United States all have private label Greek now. And they push it very hard in their weekly circulars and their ads and online. And despite all of that marketing muscle and all of that distribution muscle, has not taken off at all. So when you talk about value of brands, right? And you talk about, I love what Jez said earlier, your brand strategy is really your business strategy brought to life in a creative and compelling way. That chart, I mean, think about Walmart's money, Target's money, Kroger's money, and their ability to promote their own stuff. And they can't move the needle because consumers don't believe in it or don't feel anything about it. By the way, brands are emotional. Food's emotional. Put it in your body, for Christ's sake. So anyway, I digress. I'll move on. Our core cup is our base billion-dollar business. And you can't innovate your way out of a core decline, I always say. So we've had to keep this platform fresh because we need that. It's our base business. And it was interesting. It was made very well from the beginning. So it's 40% less sugar than regular yogurt. And what are the big trends out there right now? High protein, low sugar. All natural, non-GMO. Sustainably crafted, right? So it was made at 40% less sugar. It was made all natural, non-GMO. It was made RBST-free. It's just authentically strained yogurt, which gives you the protein, so 3 cups of milk to 1 cup of yogurt. Our competitors, it's interesting, there's no standard of identity for Greek yogurt in the United States, unlike the UK. So there's Greek style here. So our competitors are adding milk protein concentrate and making it cheap and calling it Greek. Their margins are huge. Stuff tastes terrible. We're actually using 3 cups of milk. So again, cost of goods very high. It's 80% yogurt, 20% fresh fruit. That's it. That's what yogurt's supposed to be. So when I read labels of our competitors, you're supposed to be able to pronounce what's in yogurt. Just the way it was kind of meant to be like 4,000 years ago. So, but how do you keep it fresh? And how do you remind people how good it is? That's the challenge, right? And then you can innovate off of that. A lot of people and a lot of companies make mistakes and they just kind of move to all their innovation and they kind of leave their base business behind. So Flip has been an unbelievable thing, and that's that dry sidecar. So it's yogurt and it's nuts and seeds and dark chocolate. Again, all natural, non-GMO. It's also an excellent source of protein, but we're trying to push into snacks and push into afternoon. And it's been highly incremental. So 50% of the sales of Flip are either people buying an incremental yogurt or people who never had yogurt before, but you put some nuts and seeds and chocolate in it, and it's like Greek yogurt at training wheels. People jump into the category, and it's the #1. So Almond Coco Loco, which is coconut yogurt and toasted and roasted almonds and dark chocolate, is the #1 SKU in the entire $9 billion category from a dollar share perspective. It's the #1 SKU in Walmart, Kroger, Target. But its success, we think that's our next billion-dollar platform, and you can be very creative with the food and have a lot of personality in terms of the platform. And we have 24 SKUs now. We have a s'mores, and we have a peanut butter dream. We have our take on a Snickers bar. And products like this are going to be critical to drive growth because the vast majority of yogurt's still consumed before noon, right? So we got to get it into other day parts, and you got to have some fun with it. And you got to make it a little naughty. It's still better than cakes, pies, cookies, and candy bars, but it is 200 calories. It does have a decent amount of sugar, but it's an excellent source of protein. It's all natural, non-GMO. So, it's how you frame it. But that moves 3 times faster than any other yogurt item on the shelf. So it should have, the way I look at it, I have the debate with the Walmarts and Kroger's, it should have 3 times the shelf space, because otherwise we're all leaving money on the table. They don't see it quite that way. But this platform has grown in the last 2 years, and it was one of the simple marketing challenges, right? It had 52% repeat. It's now up to 55% repeat, and it had 4% trial. So it's like, okay, every 2 people we make aware of it, 1 and 2 repeats. So we just had to go out there and tell people about it, and it took off. It went from a $50 million run rate about a year and a half ago. We're going to close it a little over $300 million this year. And that's growth. And it's incremental to the category, because as the leader of the category, we're supposed to help grow the category. We want to grow Chobani, but in doing so, we want to grow the category. And look, you could stretch this. You could take what's in the sidecar and put it into a bag and call it trail mix, right? I have a lot of these ideas, but I'm not telling you guys. I'll just give this one example. But it's easy, right? You could put milk, and it could be cereal, it could be trail mix, whatever. We have the food there. It's a packaging play. You could take what's in the sidecar that we know people love, right? You go on social, and people are doing their own ritual with the sidecar. Some people eat the sidecar first. It's like Oreo cookies stuff, right? But you could make a bar out of that very easily. It's all natural, non-GMO ingredients, right? So all of these platforms have stretchability, which I'm not really going to get into from a roadmap perspective. And then we launched drinks. So in America, drinks is 4% of a $9 billion yogurt category. In Mexico, it's 51%. In Europe, it's about 65%. In the Middle East, where Hamdi's from, like 90% of yogurt is consumed in a drinkable form. Right? It makes no sense that 4% of the total yogurt market is drinks, right? And I think it's because no one has gotten behind it and launched it and educated people about it. It's sort of like Greek yogurt 9 years ago. So we think that's the $3 billion platform for us. Why? We spent a lot of time, and I encourage you all to drink it, please. We spent a lot of time developing it. It's very thin, so the mouthfeel and the texture is not that chalky, pasty stuff that people think. And it's very high in protein. So it's not like Naked, which, by the way, is a wolf in sheep's clothes, right? 64 grams of sugar. I can't help myself. Per bottle. 64 grams of sugar per bottle, which is insane. But they have big protein claims on Naked because they know protein's a craze in America, but they're adding powder. So when you drink it, it's very granular. This protein's coming from the milk itself. It's 3 cups of milk. It's authentic Greek yogurt in there. And then it's fresh fruit and veggies. That's it that's in the drink. So you got low sugar, you got high protein, and you have a really smooth mouthfeel. It's a little thicker than whole milk. And so it's delicious, and it's nutritious, and it's natural. And so why wouldn't, if we did our jobs right, why wouldn't you be, yes, you could probably cannibalize a little bit if you're not careful, spoonable yogurt, but you'd be going after juices. No one should have it. No one should have another Ensure, if any. I hope no one is drinking Ensure in this room. But if you were sick or unhealthy, you should never drink Ensure, because this can get you the protein and the calories and the probiotics if you're on antibiotics. Not that I'm going to make a huge, steal Ensure market share to launch drinks, but I'm saying, and you'd source from those produce drinks, the Nakeds and the Bolt Houses of the world. It should be a drink, not a yogurt drink. And so we have very high aspirations for this. We just launched it a couple months ago. The early signs are amazing. And I'm not just talking about in the Northeast or New York City. I'm talking about Walmart. So it was accepted in all Walmarts, all Targets, all Krogers. Again, better food for more people. You're seeing mainstream America start to grab this and gravitate toward it. And we're going to do a huge campaign in January to raise its profile and awareness. But high hopes for this, and there's a lot of innovation coming off of that from kids and multi-packs and multi-serve and all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to move faster, sorry. So pushing the boundaries. Food service is a huge opportunity, right? Bulk yogurt as a sour cream substitute, a mayonnaise substitute. You can bake and cook with it. It's very versatile. Imagine it, a dollop of it on chili or a fajita or a baked potato. Whole milk. It's indulgent, but it's a third the calories. It's a third of the fat of sour cream. I'm not picking on sour cream, but shouldn't really exist anymore, right? And it's declining. Sorry. But we got to start thinking of substitutes. And sour cream dulls the flavor of food. You put it on chili, it dulls it. Whereas with live and active cultures, you put a dollop of yogurt on, it actually enhances it. Now, if I could do 90-second infomercials, I'm sure I could convince everybody to do this. But I don't have the luxury to do that. But food service is really interesting. So we got a deal with McDonald's. They came to us. They're trying to rebrand, right? Everyone's watched the whole fast food thing go down. I'm sure you've studied it. And they're on the wrong side of the trend in truth. And so they're trying to do the right thing. And Southern California is actually pioneering for all of McDonald's. And so we replaced, they had this custard-style yogurt that was pretty bad stuff. We replaced it with our vanilla. And so now it's high in protein. It's all natural. And then we put it in their smoothies. And their smoothie volume is up 150%. And we co-branded. And everyone said, hey, Pete, McDonald's, come on, what are you doing with Chobani? You're going to kill the brand? No, it's better food for more people. It's actually on vision. It's on mission. And if people are going to eat that stuff anyway, if we can help make it a little bit better, then so be it. And we just closed down with airlines. Talk about a captive audience. You're stuck on an airline in the morning, half asleep, pissed off, going to a business meeting. And it's a food desert. It's the worst food on the planet. Now you can have a Chobani on American Airlines, United, and JetBlue. Huge volume. It's also going to be in the lounges. And so different eating occasions, different distribution channels, right? So we're going to start pushing it. Dips, meze dips, 80% less calories than hummus, 50% less fat, and it's all natural. That hummus with the red circle around it, I'm not going to tell you the name of it and who makes it, not even natural. So, hummus is a billion-dollar category now. Hummus has gone crazy. It's not natural. It's loaded with fat, has artificial preservatives. So we went in and said, look, why don't we try to disrupt? Meze, the Mediterranean table, bold flavors. So these are Greek yogurt dips. We have a smoked onion parmesan, a roasted red pepper. We're doing a ranch. Wildly successful. Because it's delicious, it's nutritious, it's natural, and we're making it affordable. And for the first time, we're in deli. We got it out of dairy. So you're sitting, and delis are a really interesting part of the store. It's very dynamic, it's fresh. People are really kind of hovering around the deli set. So that's just one way where we can change consumption and push the boundaries a little bit. Our cafes are physical manifestations of our brand, right? So the busiest part of our cafe now is between 12 and 3. Used to be an 8 to 10 in the morning business. We've pushed into salads and salad dressings, coffee. We've pushed into smoothies and breakfast bowls. We're baking. We're doing coffee cakes and rice pudding, substituting, putting our sour cream in rice pudding, all sorts of stuff. It's like a test kitchen. We just opened up one in the new Target, which is their new flexible format, 47,000 square feet in Tribeca. And there's a line literally out the door. And so we love these because it's on brand. It's getting people a glimpse into what, it's a Mediterranean yogurt bar. It's an all-day eating occasion. We're selling sandwiches with our labneh, which is cream cheese. So it's a way for us to push the boundaries. It's a way for us to get people to think about yogurt differently. It's a way for us to advertise. They're beautiful ads for the company. And it's a way for us to increase consumption. So we're going to do a lot more cafes. And we launch a cafe, and we're in USA Today, New York Times, and Wall Street Journal in one day. Little old Chobani, not only online, in the printed newspaper by launching a cafe. So, it's interesting because people are like, yeah, it's on trend. You guys are doing interesting things. And so I'm going to keep flying through this. I touched on this. And so we think there's a lot of growth. We think yogurt should be not an $8 to $9 billion category. It should be double. It should be 15 to 16 billion if we push consumption and if we continue to excite and innovate. And as the leader, that's what we're going to do. We have half the consumption of yogurt than Europe. It's the only thing that America consumes least versus Europe. We're in the consumption capital of the world, right? We over-freaking consume in America, but we under-consume yogurt. Pisses me off. So anyway, it's because it's been around a long time in Europe, and they eat it throughout the day, and they do substitute it for other foods. And so if you look at that, we're also half of Canada. So there's a huge opportunity here. And most of it's still consumed before noon. So we are very bullish on the category. We're going to continue to lead the category, but we're also going to do a lot of adjacencies along the way. And so when you look at the brand, we think we're on the right side of the trend in truth. And we have our tracking studies. I'm sure you guys have tracking studies, but I love this. I mean, these are really statistically different, dramatically different. But when you look at great tasting and I feel good about eating and a brand I trust, and we crush our competition, not that I'm competitive. And food nutrition is nutritious, is wholesome, uses high quality ingredients. So if you are true to yourself, the consumer will give you the credit. And we are slightly premium priced to our competitors, still attainable, right? And that gets into the pricing game. And brand image, I mean, this is great, innovative, a trendsetter. And then this is an interesting slide, because when asked about companies people admire and like and rate highly, we're up there with a lot of other companies, whether you're making cars or whether you're making sneakers or whether you're making computers. And so that's because a lot of the stuff we do within, which I'm going to touch on, then I'll finish up. And so bottom line is consumers are philosophically and fundamentally aligned with natural foods that come from companies with modern beliefs and a modern mindset. It's a mouthful, but it's important. I think that is the case for all companies, not just food companies. And for us, goodness goes beyond the company and the cup. It's our culture. And that's really driven by our founder. And I can't tell you enough about culture and how important it is. And so the way I look at it, it's people, planet, profit, provenance. We're a little light on the profit a few years ago, so I put that on the slide now. You got it, to Jez's point. Without profit, you can't do more good in the world. You can't, and by the way, doing good and making money are inclusive, mutually inclusive, and you got to figure out how to do that. People, planet, profit, providence, and that's what we've done in the last 6 to 8 months, and it's brought the brand to another level. And so our commitment to community, 52 weeks out of the year, we're doing community engagement. We're doing food banks. We're participating in the Louisiana floods. We're doing blood drives and 5K runs and where our factories are. 52 weeks out of the year. Community engagement is under me, and it's something we're kind of quiet about, but very, very proud of it. And I think modern brands have to continuously give back to the communities they're in and the community at large. And you'll be rewarded for it. Our Chobani Foundation, 10% of every cup from the first cup. Better food for more children. So the foundation is under me too, because it's a part of the brand, right? And so we want to minimize obesity, and we want to minimize diabetes among kids. It's an epidemic in this country, right? And so that's the foundation. The incubator launched last night, and so we did an incubator. We had 450 applications in 9 days. We chose 6 companies. It was really, really hard. And they started last night. They're going to be with us for 9 months. They're going to end at Expo West next year. And this is going to be a continuous thing. Very, very proud moment for the company. We gave grants with no strings attached. We may do joint ventures, or we may take equity stakes at the end of the 9 months, but we gave money with no strings, which, again, we did differently. And so they're going to be based in our Soho office. And we're just going to spend a lot of time with them and kind of share our pitfalls and share our learnings and share our company with them to help them be tomorrow's natural food company and really challenge and help fuel the food revolution like we're doing. And so these are kindred spirits companies that are making awesome products but need some branding help, need some distribution help, need some pricing help, need some food safety help. We're going to give it to them. 3 weeks ago, we became a certified great place to work, right? Again, I led a lot of that work. It's part of the brand. It's part of the culture. And so I don't know if traditionally it's part of a CMO's remit. I don't really care. At Chobani, it is. But that was an incredibly proud moment, and it took off like wildfire on social because people also need to hear good stories. We launched 10 days ago paid parental leave, which I think it got 400 articles were written about it, and 300 broadcast stations picked it up. We got a tweet from Hillary Clinton, tweet from Michelle Obama, tweet from Barack Obama. All of our senators did the same thing, Schumer from upstate New York, because it's a good thing to do. 91% of manufacturing companies in the United States don't give paid parental leave. That's wrong. We're going to help lead it. We want to help change it. And that's if you have a child, if you foster a child, or if you adopt a child, and that's for men and women. And it's pioneering within manufacturing. Non-government workers, 87% of non-government workers in the United States don't have access to paid parental leave. That is ridiculous, right? And so we should adopt some European philosophies, frankly. And we want to lead that. That's not a yogurt thing. Kidding me? But when you examine the social feeds and when you look at the articles, it becomes a part of the brand, being a modern CPG company, being tomorrow's food company. The other thing, 3 months ago, Hamdi gave away 10% of the company to the entire company. So it took us a year and a half to do Chobani shares, because if you give away more of the company to more than if you give away part of the company to more than 500 people, you have to be a public company. So it took a year and a half of lawyer fees and nonsense to work through, and he gave away 10% of the company to all 2,000 employees. So shift managers in the factory have a piece of the company, success moving forward, which is, again, pioneering. And he gave away the company when it was already $1.5 billion in sales and worth $3 billion. So it's easy to give away a piece of your company at the very, I'm not saying it's easy, I'm not taking it away, but when you start and the company's not worth anything yet, to give equity is one thing. 10 years in is another thing. This is real money that people can accumulate at all levels. And again, if you're going to democratize food, you're going to democratize the well-being of your employees. And when you give parental leave, it's not going to be to the top 100 people. It's going to be to all 1,000 people. And when you give away a big chunk of the company, it's not going to be to the VPs, SVPs, EVPs, and the chiefs. It's going to be to everybody. Again, it's just a mindset. And so I'm going to show you this video. NBC came to our factory, and it became the big kind of news story that week, Lester Holt's NBC Nightly News. And they did a segment I'm going to play you. And the average segment views are 275,000 views. So they do a kind of every week they do a feature segment, NBC Nightly News. And it has about 50,000 shares. So this got 84 million views and 50 million shares, okay? And it's a yogurt company. Why? Because it's what the culture of this company is all about. It's about a founder and owner and CEO that's giving back to the community and his company and his employees. And frankly, at a time, at a backdrop of this toxic political environment we're in, and the thing took off. It trended for about 4 days. So, play it.
In the modern workplace, hugging the boss may not be the first instinct of many employees.
Oh my God!
But there were hugs aplenty this morning at the Chobani yogurt plant in upstate New York. Company founder Hamdi Ulukaya made an announcement.
We used to work together. Now we are partners.
Real partners, financial partners. Ulukaya is giving his employees a 10% stake in the company when it goes public or is sold. It's a windfall that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars each.
That's amazing. Amazing. Who does that?
Completely unexpected. I think that everyone is so excited.
That's 2 plants and more than 2,000 employees. A move more Silicon Valley than upstate New York.
Why do this? You know, it's been my dream. I'd like to get back to them and say, you and this community and this country has been so great to us, and I'd like to return that favor back to you.
The success of Chobani, a brand not 10 years old but worth billions, could only happen in America, says Ulukaya, an immigrant from Turkey who started with nothing.
You can always tell yourself that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, but truly believe in it is a miracle.
Maybe the miracle is that they all believed. Terry Edmonds is employee number 6.
I think about how little we started and how hard all these people worked to bring this to what we have. And I'm very proud.
The money means a lot, say these folks, but being appreciated means even more. Harry Smith, NBC News, New Berlin, New York.
So, you know, brands are, I think Jez said it earlier, brands are, they're different now than they used to be. They're more open, they're more porous. People interact with them. People see the good, the bad, the ugly. And so as you build your brands and as you build your brand equity, I implore you all to think differently about how you do it. It can be your employee engagement. It can be your employee benefit programs. It can be your community relations, your government relations. It can be how you do PR. It can be how you develop products. It can be the nutritionals of the food you make. It's all of that stuff. And the better you do it, make it, and market it, the better the business growth will be. And so all of this, what we try to do is tomorrow's food company is what our vision is. And that's about as much of the food we make, but it's about how we behave and how we act, frankly. And so last slide, our anatomy to growth is always have a point of view about your business, your consumer, and things in between. We talk about LGBT, we talk about inclusion, we do a lot of refugee work. It's polarizing. We live in a divided nation. So refugees is a big part of what we do, especially having a Turkish founder. We have a very strong point of view about it. That's not without consequence from a brand perspective, given where views and values are around the world, around the nation. But you gotta have a point of view. That's what modern consumers want in a brand. Always challenge, convention the category in yourself. We're restless as hell, and it's never good enough, and it's never fast enough, and I think that's what keeps us kind of competitive. Always experiment and innovate. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I had an old boss tell me one time, you know, half of what I do is wrong, but I do a lot. We make a lot of mistakes, but we're courageous enough to try stuff. And if it doesn't work, we'll be the first to admit it. It's okay. Always stretch your brand and business. You'll be surprised how far it can go. Like that cafe, we're really pushing the envelope on yogurt and what it is to be a yogurt company right now. And it's very stretchable, and consumers really kind of understand it and give you credit. Consumer gives you credit for more than you think. Always punch above your weight. You know, otherwise you're an underachiever. Gotta punch above your weight. It's no fun to punch at your weight, right? So I encourage everyone to do that in all of their roles and responsibilities. And always have a heart, culture, community, company. We're heart first, gets us in trouble sometimes. We can be a little over emotional and not think things through. But I frankly think that's what consumers want. They want brands with heart. And brands are more and more emotional now. Food's more and more emotional. So heart first marketing. Have heart. And I think if you let that guide you, you'll always be on the right side of the trend in truth. You may have, you know, little things here and there, but ultimately you'll succeed. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.